Hello students, welcome to our chapter 4. This is on scientific method. I hope you will enjoy the topic. Welcome. In the world we live, there are lots of problems in various areas, such as farming, our health, our environment, etc. So, when we want to find solutions to these problems surrounding us, we need to use a special way of thinking, which we call scientific method. By using this approach, it helps scientists finding the right answers to real life challenges. Therefore, in this lesson, we are going to learn more about the scientific method. We will explore why it is important and how we can use it. Let's now start by understanding the concept of scientific method. Now, just imagine, maybe you are not feeling well and you wanted to go to the doctor. What the doctor will do is to ask you questions about how you feel. Then, he or she will examine your health and sometimes sends you for testing. Now, why are they doing all of this? They do this because they want to be sure what's wrong with your health so that they can give you the right medicine. Now, just like how doctors will follow steps to make sure you feel better, that is actually what scientists do in order to get answers to their questions. Therefore, these steps are what we call scientific method. It is actually like the steps which we need to do when carrying out experiments to learn new things. Now, whenever scientists use these scientific methods, they need to follow the following 7 steps in their experiments. The first step is problem identification. In this step, what they do is just to figure out what's the actual question they need to solve. Let's see an example of problem identification. Imagine you have some trees, and some of the trees are healthier while others are not. You might be asking what's the problem. Your question will be, does watering affect the growth of the tree? Now, this will take us to step 2 of scientific method, which is formulation of hypothesis. Under this step, you make some guesses on what might be the answer to your question. In relation to our problem of growth of the tree, our hypothesis can be as follows. Maybe you might think that watering a tree regularly can make it more healthier than the one which is not watered. After formulating your hypothesis, you will go to the third step, which is experimentation and observation. Under this area, you will do experiments and watch carefully what actually happens. Now, in order to design a suitable experiment, you must find out factors that affect the problem you want to investigate. Just imagine you are doing a science experiment and you want to find out how something works, like making plant taller. In order to do all of this, you will need to to pay attention to three special things, which we call variables. Let's now see them. There are three types of variables. These are dependent variables, independent variables, as well as controlled variables. Let's start with the dependent variables. These are the factors that can change their values when the values of other variables change. They are dependent. In simple terms, we can explain dependent variables as those things which you are watching closely during your experiment. By referring to our plant experiment, it is just observing how tall the plant grows. So, if you give the plant more water or light, you will always look at how it affects the plant's height. Generally speaking, we can say dependent variables are like the results you are looking for. Let's now check independent variables. What are they? These are those factors which can be changed so as to obtain different values for comparison. In simple terms, these are the things you can change purposely in order to see what will happen. In our plant experiment, independent variables can be things such as how much water or light the plant gets. So, you can change these things to see how they influence the plant's height. In simple terms, independent variables are the changes you make. Let's now check controlled variables. What are they? These are the factors you keep the same or you keep them constant during experiment. They don't change. In our plant experiment, controlled variables might be things like the type of soil you use or the pot the plant is in. Therefore, controlled variables always will stay constant to make sure your experiment is fair. And that only the independent variables will affect the dependent variable. They are like the constants that help you compare two things. Okay, let's now conclude on variables. So, in our plant experiment, we are looking at how tall the plant gets. That is dependent variable. While changing things like water and light, that will represent independent variable, and making sure everything else is constant, that will be controlled variable. This will help us to understand how different factors affect the plant's growth. That is how scientists figure out how things work. In relation to the growth of the tree, our experimentation will be as follows. You need to choose two small trees, one which you will water and the one which you will not. Then you will keep everything similar. Watch the results over time. The fourth step you will do is data collection or recording. Under this step, what you actually do is writing down the information gathered during experiment. In relation to our experiment, we will need to note down our observations. First, we will need to record the days when we water and when we don't water the other tree. Then we will need to measure the height of the tree as well as checking if the leaves are similar. Then you will go to the fifth step, which is on data analysis and interpretation. Under this step, what you do is to look at the information recorded and make analysis. From the data we recorded, you come after a few weeks and you note that the tree you watered regularly has grown taller and looks green, while the other tree is shorter and almost with dry leaves. Once you have finished your data analysis and interpretation, you will come now to the sixth step, which is on drawing a conclusion. This is actually deciding whether your hypothesis is wrong or correct. Now, based on what you observed in our experiment, we can draw a conclusion that watering a tree regularly makes it grow taller and healthier. Therefore, your hypothesis is correct. The seventh step is reporting results. Here, we share our findings with the others so that they can learn from the discoveries we have just made. So now, as you can see, you have used the scientific method to find out that watering a tree can affect its growth. Therefore, we can now conclude that scientific method is a special way that is used by scientists to solve various problems and learn new things. If you find that your results do not support the hypothesis, do the following three things. First, do not leave the experimental results. Then, give possible reasons for the difference between your hypothesis and experimental results. Then, give ideas for further investigation. Let's now check the importance of scientific method. This is very useful, especially when it comes that we are finding reliable solutions to our problems. The first importance is that it reduces bias. It helps us make sure that the solution we get is not affected by our personal opinions or our cultural beliefs. The second importance is relying on experiments. Instead of just guessing things out, scientific method relies on doing experiments. The third importance is that it increases confidence of our results. When we use scientific methods, we get reliable results that we can trust. The fourth importance is that it helps us proving and repeating experiments. Scientific method lets us prove things, do the same test again and again to be sure. Let's now check the application of scientific method. The first application is in carrying out experiments. Scientists use scientific method to figure out how things work. Another application is in project work. Just imagine a big school project. Doing scientific method helps you learn more about something. Another application is in doing field study. Scientists usually go out of their scientific laboratories to explore the real world.